Someone did a poop at the party we were at the other night.
Yeah.
Wasn't right.
On the table, on the floor?
Just in the toilet.
I'm fine with that. Like,
was it a really smelly poo?
Wasn't good.
What are you finding, Ryder?
Well, no, I'm fine with that. Like, as in,
He's finding that.
I didn't do it at that party, but I have pooped at parties before, and it's fine to poop at parties. If you've got to poop, you've got to poop.
Pooping at parties is the perfect pop shield test.
Yeah, I had to do a poop at a party recently, and it took 2 flushes to go down.
Oh, that's never a good sign.
I was really worried for a while that I'd have to leave the toilet, let somebody else in next, because obviously there was a line, and that they would know my shame for having pooped at the party.
Did you fish it out and
I poked it
pop
down.
it in your pocket? Just for later. Next time you flush it away. Then.
I always, if I ever do like a number 2 at a party, I'll just say, if I ever do a poop at a party, I always then I kind of clean the toilet afterwards. Like, because
with your hands?
not with my hands, just
you
like
use
the cleaning products that are around. Yeah,
find the first towel you can.
Did you clean your toilet with a towel?
Other people's toilets, I would. It's not my towel or my toilet. It's fair game.
Usually rip the shower curtain off and just use that to...
As long as no one knows that I've done a shit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Trufax podcast. Today we are here, as always, with Ed Sanders.
Hello.
Dan Hills.
Hello.
And myself, Ryder Broadbent-Smith. Hello.
What's today's topic, Ryder?
Today's topic is maps.
Well, last week's topic was quite heavy, wasn't it? You know, on the moral standing and...
After having listened to the edit of it, I think it was heavier before the edit. After the edit, it was a bit lighter. I think that was
very pleasant in the end. Yeah. I found a light-hearted look at murder.
I was aiming for 7 o'clock on BBC One. You know, that's what
I think we could go for that, like an early panorama.
Yeah, exactly. We'd have to maybe cut out some of the swearing, but otherwise, you know.
And with, I say jokes, with us laughing at ourselves. They don't do that on panorama.
No,
it'd be kind of weird if they did.
I would watch it if they did.
It'd be more like Mock the Week at that point.
Just an honest documentary where they don't really know what they're talking about, and they're selling us facts and then laughing about it.
Nobody would watch. They get booed off stage, television.
Are they doing it live as well?
Yes.
I thought Panorama was in front of that was like Watchdog. That was like in front of a live studio audience where they just present some things and everyone's like, oh, what? No. What if someone wanted to email us? Where would they do that?
Using their own email accounts.
Yeah. Oh, where would they? What would the recipient email be?
It would be trufaxpodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Are we anywhere else that they can contact us?
We are. We're on Twitter. We are at Trufax Podcast. Where else are we, Ed?
We're on Facebook as well. Facebook.com/Trufax Podcast.
I think.
Yep.
Search for it. It will be there.
Yeah. And our website is trufax.podbean.com.
Yeah.
And we're on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Just search for
YouTube.com/ a whole bunch of numbers.
Don't just look for
letters.
Trufax. I just tried to look for Trufax the other day, and it came like there's this other guy who introduces himself. It's like, "Hey, it's Trufax here," and I'm like, "No, we're Trufax."
Us. We need to do some of that search engine optimization. That's what we need to do.
Isn't that just paying Google to like?
It's like a whole job. People get employed to be search engine.
It's all about how many times you appear on the web, isn't it? So if everyone who's listening to this just creates a website that has a link to us on it.
That'd be really helpful.
Yeah. Even if there's nothing else on it. Set up a website just with our own website linked to it on that.
Is that all we have to do?
I think so.
It feels so simple.
I feel like it isn't what these people who are getting paid tens of thousands of dollars a year to do search engine optimization are actually doing, but
no.
They're at least making fake blog posts about things.
Oh, we should start doing that.
We already do a podcast. Do we have to do a blog as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just post some transcripts up on 900 websites.
Anyway, This is the Maps episode of the Trufax podcast. What is a map?
I don't know.
Okay.
I did.
Well, we're gonna find out today, Ed.
A map to me is... I mean, you'd always find a map in the back of your dad's car, you know.
What about your mum's car?
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mean to be gender discriminatory there. No,
Okay, I apologise.
no, I should be the one apologising.
It's just in the back of cars in general.
Yes.
No matter who they belong to, even if they're abandoned cars, there's a map in them.
There's a map in there, isn't there? And
Do they
road
come
map.
with the cars?
Yes.
Sometimes you'd fill up at the petrol station. They give you a free map,
Nice.
and they show you where to go and things. I guess.
Yeah.
It's basically a graphical representation of some sort of data, usually
Ooh.
geographical, but not necessarily.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought of like a kind of a audio map or like network map. So when if you're putting up you're making like your home network for where your hub's going to be, what all the computers are. That's a network map. That's a map.
It is.
What
Yeah.
about a mind map? Do you think that's actually what your mind would look like if you could spell out all the neuron connections?
Just a series of boxes coloured in pink that say, "Today I'm going to be positive."
We should be on Pinterest with that, shouldn't we?
I've never actually been on Pinterest.
I think it's a lot.
Pinterest basically is a mind map. It's like a mood board.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
Pinterest? Oh,
I
Should
think
we start
they-
Pinterest?
They pin things
pin-
of interest.
Yeah, that's where the name comes from.
Yeah. And then it's like, I've pinned all this stuff. That's quite interesting. And it's like, I can see your pins. And it's like, oh, we share some interests. I guess it could be used as like a weird dating website, but I don't think it is.
I'm going to start Pinterest for
Yeah.
this podcast.
Yes, Trufax. Dot
Will be
Pinterest.
pinterest.com/Trufax podcast. If you're on it, let me know, and we'll date.
We could, you already have a lady wife.
She'll be behind this because she knows no one will date me through Pinterest. Maybe
Oh,
she will. I
feel
don't
right.
know if she uses Pinterest.
It seems like quite a girly thing.
Whoa.
Have I done it again?
Yeah, you've done it again.
Pinterest is just a thing for people, Ed.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Same as maps.
Yeah.
Maps are a thing for people.
Do either of you have a favourite map?
London Tube map.
I was going to say London Tube map. It's a damn fine map, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I used to really like the maps you'd get in fantasy books. As a kid, like Lord of the Rings, there's the big map of Middle Earth in the back of every book.
Yeah.
I used to just pore over those for hours. My geography of Middle Earth, I'm ashamed to say, is probably better than my geography of the real Earth.
I think I'm the same with Azeroth, the World of Warcraft. A colleague of ours was recently telling me about how that was one of his favourite things about the game because it has a very detailed map and you can kind of zoom into certain sections depending on where you are. And I think fantasy maps are really interesting because you can kind of just do whatever the hell you like and make like amazing environments.
Well, it's basically a work of art, isn't it? It's regular maps of the world that we know and live in are based in reality. You've seen satellite images, you know it's true. Whereas a fantasy map can be anything. It's something someone has imagined. Well, the real maps of the world could be like that for all I know.
I've got a problem with the game, not the Game of Thrones, with the Lord of the Rings map, and that it just seems a bit too like he only shows you the stuff that they go to. Like you'd imagine a map to be like the entire world, all encompassing, but unless they go to it in the books, then it doesn't seem to be on the maps.
Isn't that just because it's like they got maps from their areas? So it's like they're using a map that's from their place where they are. So that it only includes that sort of stuff where it's like, they could be like, if they were on the other side of the world and they got a map from there, it might not include all of the Middle Earthy bits where Frodo and his mates hang about.
Kind of brings me on to the first question, which
there.
is what would a map look like before satellite imagery? How did they know that they were correct before satellites could prove that we've accurately measured the landscape?
From what I know, like when America was like first colonized and they were trying to figure out what it will look like and how to divide states up and like all of that, because it was such a mass of land, like groups of people literally did just walk around the coast or areas of the country, drawing kind of like a line across a map as they're kind of going and get or across a piece of paper kind of saying this is roughly what the landscape looks like,
Yeah.
and then kind of improvising from there. Like,
It seems really prone to errors. It
It
seems
totally
like they
was.
could just, I don't know, they think they're taking a right angle corner, but actually they're taking like a 70 degrees or something.
I think it depends how long ago you're talking as well. Because if you're into the realms of kind of discovery and by sea, so they can sail around the coasts and get a rough idea of the shape of a landmass. Whereas if you're talking before kind of boats were even a big thing, just very primitive maps, everyone still thought the world was flat. No one necessarily knew there was sea depending where they were. They would take two landmarks. There wouldn't really be distances either. And I guess it would just be an approximation. Like you set off on a heading
Mm.
and eventually you'll get where you need to go. And on the map, it might look like it's 10 meters. It might be 20 miles. You'll know when you get there.
I think a lot of what they used to do, they draw landmarks and say, like, there's this big mountain over there, there's that big mountain over there, and then kind of just connect the dots in between. So it was, and I think that's maybe how other maps started to be formed. So it was done on like what you could see initially, and then you get a collection of all the things that you can see, and then you put that all together, and that makes a larger map.
I think it's a bit like the London Tube map in the sense that it's not. It doesn't have to be geologically accurate. It just has to be accurate to the number of days it would take to walk from point A to point B, or the number of villages you'll come across on. Like you could a map be a straight line in the past? And
well, the London Tube map basically is a straight line, isn't it? You know what places you need to go through to get to the next place, and they're arranged in a rough sort of pattern. So if you were to see them placed on top of an actual geographical map of London, it will somewhat match up. So you kind of use those as reference points, and you go from there.
Circle line's a bit more of a circle rather than a straight line.
It's true.
Like a lopsided circle.
I don't know the names of any of the other lines. Are they named after what they
Jubilee,
look
Victoria, Northern.
like? The lightning bolt-shaped line.
I don't think the Victoria line looks very much like Queen Victoria.
No. Going back to the earlier maps, I read a thing earlier about. Do you know what a paper town is? Have you ever heard of a paper town?
John Green wrote a book called Paper Towns.
I've read
it's got
that
a map
book.
on the cover, and that's all I know.
Does it?
Is it a two-dimensional world?
So a paper town is apparently what, like, real cryptographers? Is that what they're called? The people who make the maps?
Cartographers.
Cartographers.
Oh, shit.
Cryptographers make secret maps that you'll never understand.
Cartographers would put paper towns on the maps that they produce, and they're basically fake towns or villages. The idea was to prevent fraudulent material, so they'd be able to tell if people are copying them because they've got
same idea as a trap street, isn't it? So on old maps of London, the creators would put fake streets in, so that if the map was replicated, they'd name the street after like their aunt or something.
Yeah.
And then if that street showed up on another map, it wasn't real.
Bessie Alley.
Yeah, they'd go and chase them down. Bessie Alley isn't here. You've copied me.
Yeah.
And then they'd duel like noblemen.
Yeah. Pistols at dawn.
If they had pistols, otherwise good old-fashioned swords.
If they didn't have swords, they used sticks.
Or lances on horseback.
Yeah.
Or maybe a trebuchet.
How do you have a trebuchet
You just
duel?
fling them at each other.
One from one town to the next.
Okay, so imagine this, right? You're a political party that wants to get rid of something from public
Ooh.
perception or something. If you erase it from a map, does it stop existing? What if you change the boundaries of your country's territory?
Well, that's very true, isn't it, with some of the early maps?
Yeah.
If you look at the size of the UK on some of these maps compared to the rest of it, compared to kind of India and Africa, the UK is huge.
Yeah.
We've made this map it's the centre of our universe. That's why we're right in the middle of the map as well, for starters. And then some of the other continents that we don't care for, just tiny, don't exist.
Only little.
I had an argument with someone at a party on a boat once because they didn't believe that countries put themselves at the centre of their maps. Like, he was like, no, all maps just have the UK right in the front of, in the middle of them. I was like, no. Everywhere makes their own maps with a slight bias, as if they are the start.
I think now and
Unless you kind of both gave me a look where I might be wrong with that.
I was wondering if Australia flipped the map upside down.
there are some maps that do have a southern influence where they'll point south as up instead of. I don't know why. I've never seen one of these maps.
I mean, when you come to think of it, it doesn't make that much a difference,
Yeah.
does it?
Well, surely we could just actually say that the North Pole is actually this, North and South are actually the other way round. I don't know. Yeah, there was an episode of My Name Is Earl where there was some hippie in the woods. He was labelled as a hippie. He might have just been a free spirit. And he was like, "What if if you're coming at Earth in a spaceship and you're coming at one way and you're looking at it and it's like, oh, the Earth is that way up, so that way up. But then because there's no gravity, you can just easily be approaching it from completely upside down in inverted commas. And you're like, well, it's just the other way round.
When did we decide that north was the right way up for the world to be? You look at a map and a lot of the southern hemisphere, the points do point down, and the pointy parts of the northern hemisphere do point up. It looks right.
I want to say British Empire.
And something to do with the Northern Star, probably. That star that's there in the north, that was recognised for a long time in how they navigated through seas and things like that. So I can imagine that has always just been a kind of a point of reference.
So kind of everything has been oriented with that in mind.
Yeah,
pointing towards it.
some of the older maps, or some older maps, I think when you're looking at the kind of compass, it is in a much more kind of, like, it looks a lot more star-like. Like, it's a very big kind of those nautical star? Is that a thing? I feel like that's
the
a
North
thing.
Star is a thing.
But I think, like, as a symbol, like the nautical star.
Oh yeah, with the compass points on it.
Yeah.
There are different norths. There's true north, and there's magnetic north, and there's like another one as well. I think there's 3. I don't know why. Am I making this shit up?
No, I don't think you are. Like, I remember hearing something about, like, isn't the magnetic north somewhere in America? Because there's just like a big lump of metal just in a hill or something like that, and it just...
They probably mined it by now.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean when I say that north is always been north, because we've calculated it based on this either lump of metal in a hill in America, or the magnetic pull of the North Pole has dictated that this is up, essentially.
So is north like maths? Like, maths was always there and we just discovered and used it? And, like, was north always there and we've just named it north?
Yeah, well, there's... I don't have a correct answer for this.
It was like a swan's egg that we dug up, and then it hatched, and out came this swan called North.
Why was this swan underground?
Because
swans lay their eggs underground.
He was a ghost.
It was right in the centre of the earth where the heat was optimal for the North Swan to be born.
All that nuclear energy.
Yeah, so the bastard child of a beautiful swan in the north wind.
Wow, that was poetic.
True fact.
Yeah. And then there's due south. It's at Chicago. It's about a Mountie. That's where we get south from.
I mean, I reckon that has happened in the past, where they've just taken things off the map to kind of hide them, like
military
secret government facilities and things like that.
They do
like,
it in war all the time, don't they? That's
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
feed false data.
It's like when you look at a map as well, and you see like a straight line at the country boundary. You're like, that's not actually based off real landmass or anything. Is it?
Yeah.
It's just an easy way to show it in a graphical way. You know roughly where you're leaving one place and entering the other, and if the people making the map want to move that an inch or two to the right, that's their prerogative. The people won't
they have
ever
a lot
know
of
the
power,
truth.
a lot of control there.
There's that really straight bit in the United States, like their country borders, where it just goes like a straight line, and it just really seems like they just kind of got... They just were a bit lazy.
They got a bit bored.
Screw it, let's just put a straight line there. We've done the whole world at this point.
It was like 4:55 in the afternoon.
That is very true. Like, you look at the map of the states and how they're all separated, it is a very grid-like system. And then you look at Europe and how we're separated. It's just a jagged mess all over the place. Like someone's tore the countries out and then sort of tried to piece them together afterwards.
And I guess that's partially due to like the age of the like the countries and the countries that are in Europe and compared to America. Like, you know, during wartime or after wars, there's always the kind of division of land that's been previously taken over or that has then kind of been claimed, and like countries' borders change a lot all the time. Like going back to the British Empire sort of thing, like like the British Empire was like enormous, and then that stuff just got kind of passed back to the countries that they're originally from. And yeah, I guess stuff chops and changes all the time, which is why there's still why being in the map business is lucrative. You know, there's like maps are worth quite a bit, like old maps and stuff.
Well, even new maps have a high value.
Really?
Like, we think kind of Google Maps and all this open source mapping stuff is kind of free to use. It's like a given right almost that we have access to maps. But a lot of that information they pull from satellites still has to be looked over by a cartographer to make sure it's accurate, to make sure all the geographical information, the topographical information is correct.
Surely not to mention the cost of actually sending a satellite up into space to do all this mapping.
Well, apparently the first aerial kind of photographs that were used for maps were in the mid-1800s.
Wow.
I don't know if they were photographs as such, but they would have people in hot air balloons.
Balloons, yeah.
Who were able to capture an image, whether that be someone doing like a painting from a balloon of what they could see, or just making the balloon stay just so they could spend 7 minutes capturing a photograph of what they were looking at.
Oh, imagine going up in the sky in the 1800s. Like, there wouldn't have been anything else there. There wouldn't have been like tall buildings and so. I mean, you know, maybe like Edinburgh used to have like 14-story high buildings and stuff like that, but you wouldn't get much more than that back then. There wouldn't be anyone else in the sky either, except for like the pigeons.
Even up to like the 1930s, they used to think that balloons and zeppelins would be like the mode of transport. You know, I heard that the Empire State Building was built with its spire so that they could have like zeppelin transports across the Atlantic.
Yeah, just a little station there that you can hook into a sky station.
It seems laughable now that we have airports.
But a lot of kind of steampunk things, you still use zeppelins.
Yeah.
And I imagine.
Do you ever see Sky Captain
awesome
in the World
if
of
it was
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Great film. Great film.
So, jetpacks and zeppelins are how we should be travelling around now.
And isn't everything powered by steam engine as well? Like
just massive cogs for no reason on everything. That's how you know it's steampunk. Otherwise, it's just steam powered. Everyone wears goggles as well. That's important.
How did it come by the name punk? Because punk is like a rock and roll type movement.
I think it's because it's like slightly anti-establishment and kind of dystopian. So it's that sort of like it's against the norm.
Like a counterculture.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I hope we haven't offended any.
Imagine if
people
instead
who,
of a battery inside your phone, you had a steam engine.
That'd be hot.
It's so inconvenient. It would literally.
There'd be more people complaining about how hot their phones are.
Yeah, and you'd have to shovel coal into it every now and again.
Just very small amounts. Just keep a little baggie in your pocket. It's a little slot in the top that you slide it in, and then it whistles.
It's like, you know...
That's how it would ring. You'd have a little steam whistle that would go off. Yeah, every time you got a message through, a little steam whistle pops off. A bit of steam comes out of your pocket.
That would literally burn your leg.
Yeah,
so many lawsuits.
I bet you'd be wearing like boilerplate trousers because you're in a steampunk time.
Oh,
all your
right.
clothes will be made of iron.
An iron lung. Would we all live in iron lungs?
Would you ever have to you'd never really have to wash iron clothes, would you?
No, because they'd rust if you did.
Yeah.
That would be impractical.
Yeah.
Polish them though, make them look nice.
Yeah.
Or
Shiny.
if you got thinner, then you could like re-hammer them into the shape that they should be in. Or if you gained weight.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to look like you'd gained weight but haven't.
It's all an illusion.
To sneak your little brother into the cinema because he's too young to see the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have him in one of your legs of your boiler suit.
I forgot what my question was, so I'm just going to try and find out.
They used a lot of aerial photography for maps in World War One and Two. I think that was where aerial mapping really came to the fore. They did a lot of recon by air, and they had cameras that could actually take decent photos at that point to bring back. So much good technology comes from war. I think war is inherently a good thing for the world, based on that alone.
Like, I can. It's a sweeping statement. I think there have been a lot of
jet engine
what?
without the war.
Yeah, well, and like a lot of satellite imagery that we have now was developed because of like wartime and stuff like that. And I think advancements get made because people are kind of pushed to the brink. I think it's all, you know, the loss of life is really bad.
They have the money and the resources, and they need to develop things quickly to gain the upper hand. Which, if we're just left to our own devices, we do our best at. But there's no real pressure there because we're able to live with what we currently have.
Yeah.
But when
that's annoying,
the loss of life is there as a threat or protecting your country's borders, there's suddenly that impetus to go out and develop planes, develop maps.
I heard penicillin as well. Penicillin came from World War II. Or at least the discovery was around the same time.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought he was doing some stuff with some cows or something like that.
Didn't he just eat some mould?
He left some bread out in his lab when he went on holiday, and it grew mould. And then from the mould came the penicillin. But during the war is where they tried to take it from growing tiny little cultures to producing it on a mass scale, which is where the Americans took over, and they used like a brewery to make it or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. True fact, right there.
Yeah.
A true fact?
What is a true fact?
A fact that's true. A true fact is
something else.
A slight distortion of that.
I mean, it's what I can remember from a documentary I saw like 3 years ago.
That is the basis of true facts.
Could have been a dream.
Even better. That makes it more true factual.
Have either of you ever had to make a map?
I've never had to. I have made maps in the past.
Yeah.
Either like going back to the whole fantasy thing, like just making up my own fantasy worlds for school, or like I'd write a story and draw a map to go with it.
Yeah.
And this is going to win me some major nerd points here. When I got my first game consoles, I had a Atari ST. A lot of the games on there didn't have built-in maps and things. So you get your graph paper out and draw a map as you went, so you could remember where to find treasure where you'd already been. I'm sure I still have some of them in my parents' house somewhere. I dread to see what they look like now.
I think I once did, like, I sellotaped a bunch of A4 pieces of paper together and then, like, drew this whole kind of, like, big map of this, like, of, like, two opposing kind of, just this war scene that you just kind of made up as you kind of drew it, and then I kept on getting to the edge of the paper and just kept on adding more paper. And then when it kind of went all a bit weird, like, we just drew, like a kind of circular sort of thing, and it was a portal to just another part of like a piece of paper that was somewhere else. It was great fun. I showed it to the class, and I got praised by my teacher for it. I think I was about 7, so
I think that's when most people start making maps. Like you're not frustrated enough that it's total shit what you've just made.
Yeah,
and you're just having fun.
Yeah,
doing it.
Did you ever make mazes? Is a maze a map?
I reckon it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a kind of map, isn't it? It's a tricky map.
A puzzle map.
Oh yeah.
I used to make designs of houses where I'd want to live, and I'd like put secret rooms in there and stuff.
Amazing.
And a cool bedroom that was in a tree house or something.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't know if that's like a plan of a house is the same as a map, but it feels the same. Like a top down.
Like a construction blueprint in a way is a map, isn't it? It's instructions to build something, but it's a guide to how to navigate this house.
And another memory of maps is that, like Year 7 geography, where you'd have a photocopied map of the UK, and you'd have to colour the sea in blue and the grass. No, not the grass. The land in green.
Yeah.
Is that it? In Year 7? What is water? What is land? Where did you go to school, Ed?
Like the special school for special people.
Oh.
I went to school in a real boys' school, like a real
boys' school, not one of those fake boys' schools.
Not with Pinocchio. Pinocchio seems to come into every episode. Ed, are you made of wood?
Did we come to a conclusion on the first question?
Well, refresh my memory of the first question.
It was, how were maps accurate before satellite images?
I don't think they were. Like, I think it was basically just like, I guess people who went out and actually looked at the areas and made up a map did that, and then it was a collection, like, if there's like 20 maps from 20 different people of the same place and there's some consistent things, you can be like, well, that's definitely real. So I guess it was just like a lot of it was based on trust, and they wouldn't have necessarily been completely accurate, but using things like significant landmarks would have been the way to actually indicate where things are going.
I think they were accurate enough for what they were being used for, and then they got more and more accurate as people needed more and more accurate maps. So when they started to make their nautical charts and things like that, navigating with stars, some of the early kind of star maps were probably more accurate than the maps of the Earth.
I actually think for the first time ever, got a pretty comfortable answer there to the question on Trufax. Yeah, I feel that's good. Yeah.
Well done.
Well done us.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
All right.
Should we move on to the next question?
Yeah,
in that case.
May I go there?
Done and dusted with a ribbon on. Question 1.
Nice.
Question 2. If you had to create a modern-day treasure map, how would you do so? Taking into account how things like, if you just made a normal treasure map, you could just look up names of places on things like Google Maps or Apple Maps, because that kind of defeats a lot of the previous mapping purposes.
Were treasure maps ever real?
Yes.
100%.
100%.
And do they look like the treasure maps that you see in movies that are always square and tatty with a massive X and then like a dotted line of a specific path you have to walk with a palm tree and like a coconut and then a skeleton on?
No. Maybe. Probably at some point that sort of map might have existed, but I reckon, it would have just been an actual map that they maybe used while they were on like the sea voyage that then they marked on saying, this is where we hid the stuff, with an X or a circle or like a skull and crossbone to ward off intruders, and then that map gets lost somewhere. Like someone, maybe a deckhand or a stowaway steals it, jumps ship to another ship, and then to them like, hey, let's go get this treasure.
I guess if these maps weren't as accurate as modern maps, that's why no one can ever find the treasure again. It doesn't pinpoint a specific. There's not like exact coordinates on there.
No, if you used a palm tree as a marker, what if that tree, fell down or there was another tree that sprung up just like it before it? Then that would throw the entire map off guard.
Well, and it could also be like I like to think if I ever was a sea captain and I was going to make a map, I would probably. I mean, I don't want to give it away here, but I'd put some red herrings in there. So, like maybe the X isn't actually the thing that you're looking for, and there's kind of like a bit of a code that you need to break down to find out where the actual treasure is. So, like that palm tree isn't actually a palm tree. Maybe it's like some rocks that look like a palm tree.
It's symbolic.
Yeah.
There's a code to you.
Yeah.
I would definitely laminate my maps.
Oh, yeah, and then just leave them in places.
And so people can find them, and then it'll mean nothing to them. And then when they time travel or whatever they did with those other blueprints that we hid in the ground, they'll never find the treasure. Maybe the treasure will be more laminated blueprints.
In case you're listening to this at another time, that was referencing the Ghosts episode of the podcast.
Episode 1.
It's a classic, a stone cold classic.
Yeah, so you'd laminate yours to make sure that
Actually, I think there's a bigger question here.
Mhm.
When you say treasure map, we've got to define what treasure is.
Doubloons.
it's
Gold
relative.
doubloons.
Like, do you know about geocaching?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to talk about for my treasure map.
Oh.
I just pick some coordinates,
Yeah.
post them to a website, and that's my map done. There's a geocache right next to my house, apparently.
Really?
My lady partner wife and one of her friends went to try and find it, and it was like a small film canister.
Yeah.
And apparently they went and it was raining and dark. They had to climb over a fence to get near a church, and then lost it. They got hold of it, and then I think they dropped it. If you're in the geocaching community, I'm sorry on their behalf, but I'm also not going to tell you which one it was, so you don't know where I live.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I spoke to a guy recently just about geocaching, and he was saying, it's like, I was asking what he's doing later in the day, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm going geocaching. And he was saying about how he once found one which was on a post box, like a metal post box. It was like it looked just like a screw in the kind of mouth of the post box, and it was this little kind of magnet canister that he then felt around for and found, and it just had this like long piece of paper that you just unraveled and had like a little message in there, and you can just sign your name on it.
So, are you familiar with geocaching?
I'm looking very confused.
I'm actually quite uncertain what you're talking about.
So it's basically people who leave kind of little treasures almost. It's usually kind of a little metal can or a film canister or something with sometimes a little gift, but usually just a list of people who have found the particular item, and they'll either post clues to it online. There's a huge online communities of people who geocache, but typically it has a specific GPS coordinate and then a clue as to where to look when you get there.
This forms a good basis for a treasure map, like a modern day one.
Yeah.
But I think another part of a good treasure map is like in a quest film where they have to retrieve different sections of it for it to be broken up into different parts.
Mm-hmm.
And say discovering the first geocache will give you a clue of where to find the second and third and fourth. And depending on your budget, that could be throughout a city or throughout the world or buried somewhere deep.
And I think you would have to be quite visual with it, so as in kind of using maybe landmarks, like drawings of landmarks or things that could look like other things, maybe even like a riddle, so as in it's like I'm not going to come up with a riddle on the spot, but alluding to something that you have to kind of figure out what that thing might be, and that's when the next clue is. You know what I mean?
I do.
Good.
Leave me a trail of breadcrumbs for the next person.
Now, does this become a scavenger hunt, or is this then is this still a treasure map?
It's a modern day
A treasure
map,
quest.
like with the early pirate treasure maps.
Yeah.
Speaking as if that is a real. I'm
I think they're
skeptical.
real. Like
I wouldn't necessarily call it a treasure map. It's just a map
Yeah.
that you've marked some treasure on.
but
In my head, treasure maps are these
It has
Pirates
to,
of the Caribbean style, not really maps at all. They've just got a big ominous X on.
Well, they're charts, and I think treasure maps would actually have to lead back to some treasure. They would have, like, what would be at the end of a modern day treasure map? Would it be $1 million worth of bearer bonds, or would it be a free laptop computer?
I guess I reckon treasure is.
Is it what you find along the way?
No, not at all. No. Like,
Sounds like you really meant that, Ed.
I think, like, to me, like, okay, so I've got a stuffed animal. He's a penguin called Donut. To me, Donut is a treasure, but to someone else, he wouldn't be.
So if we stole him and then gave you a map to his location,
I would be very upset.
That's a hostage situation.
Yeah.
but this is a map and it's treasure to Ryder. That's a treasure map, not a hostage situation.
I mean, it's
Right?
kind of, Well, no.
But there's a map, and your treasure is at the end of it.
Okay, then I guess
And you've got to go through a scavenger hunt, and at the end you've got to give me $1 million.
That's definitely a hostage situation.
Right up until that last
The
bit,
map
it
is
was
to my bank.
How does he get his penguin back then if it's to your bank?
Oh, I know where he lives. I'll just drop him off. Maybe I never took him at all.
Oh,
Maybe it really is about
Maybe
the treasure you find
right
on the way.
along the way, yeah.
the treasure was in your heart all along.
God.
You realise you don't need donut after
There's an anime / manga that I have followed quite closely for a long time called One Piece, and it's all about pirates. And there was this guy who was the pirate king who left his treasure. It's called One Piece, and he was like, "There's the greatest treasure in the world. It's all over there, somewhere in the world." And that started like the dawn or the pirate era. Era.
The pirate era was having really shitty maps.
Yeah, or boats that leaked.
But anyway, it's a really good really good show. On one of the main characters, her dream is to kind of make the most accurate world map, and her way of doing that is by going around and just kind of drawing maps of the places that she's going. That side story seems to have kind of gone a bit to the side
In
now.
Pirates of the Caribbean, the treasure at the end is actually cursed.
Mm.
So, there's... I don't even know if there is a map to it, yeah, I think.
Isn't it in that place that you can only get to if you don't know where it is? Or the other way around?
Yeah. No, you can only get to it if you already know what it is.
Yeah.
It is. Am I getting this memory wrong? But the map can only be seen by certain people as well. It's not like just owning the map is enough. Is it knowing where the place is what shows it on the map?
In the first Pirates of the Caribbean, there's... you have to know where it is already. And then in the second and third Pirates of the Caribbean, they have a map, but different sections of it spin around. So they have to then align the different disc shape parts of the map to find the right instruction.
That's a fancy map, isn't it?
Some people are really dedicated to their craft. Cartographers.
They are artists, essentially, aren't they? Cartographers. I remember, did either of you play Monkey Island?
No, I meant to, but...
There was Wally the cartographer.
Oh, yeah.
You need to go back and revisit these games. He's like a very... I think he's quite good at his job, but he comes across as very inept. He's got some good pithy one-liners, doesn't seem to really understand maps, and he's a difficult customer to deal with, but you help him out, he helps you with the treasure map.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good.
And then off on your way to find the treasure of Booty Island.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that word.
Booty.
Funny word.
Okay, so we'd have coordinates, little clues along the way, visual hints. Anything else?
I think so much of it can be digital now as well. Like me and Ed over Christmas attempted the GCHQ like Christmas card puzzle.
Yeah.
And the first step of that puzzle was completing a puzzle. I can't remember what type of puzzle it was. So kind of a Japanese style one where you have to colour in boxes. But that then created a QR code which took you to the next step of the puzzle. And to submit your answer to the whole puzzle was the answer to another puzzle in and of itself. It basically didn't tell you what to do at any step of the way. So I think you could incorporate elements of that into a modern-day treasure map.
Definitely have publicity for this. Like, let's say I'm a millionaire and I decide that I want to have some fun with the public and I want to create a treasure map. I would also highly publicise it because I think that would then put the extra pressure of speed onto people, like who could be the first, or and also secrecy on people. Like if everybody's trying to discover the right answer, then and one person does and goes there, what if other people realise, cotton on to what these people have done?
Like in Sardines, where it's like one person gets the idea of where the person's hiding, and they kind of like try and skulk away, and then you see where they're hiding, and it's just instantly like, then it's just a mad dash to whoever gets there last. Didn't they do that with cars a few years ago?
With cars?
Yeah. They hid like loads of cars around.
I thought you said cards. And,
maybe
there was a thing called Perplexity.
Ooh,
Perplexity. It's good. It's a good name. I think it's the guys who do Moshi Monsters or whatever it's called now. It's some online Pokemon rip-off thing. It's probably not. But the whole idea of this was it's like a collectible trading cards, and all the puzzles eventually led to a solution. They'd actually hidden some treasure. This is exactly what we're talking about, to be honest. I don't know why I didn't bring this up at the start. They'd hidden some actual physical treasure out in the world, and as you completed these puzzles, there were different difficulties. The cards all had a different coloured border, and you had like the shiny cards, which is like the Man United badge of Perplexity cards. And when you solved the hardest ones, eventually it helped you to build this map and get a location for this treasure that they'd hidden. I think it was somewhere within the UK. It was a British company that made it. I had some of the cards. I was never in danger of finding that treasure. But yeah, it was worth £100,000,
Wow.
£1 million.
In a way, do you think that National Lottery scratch cards are a treasure hunt of kinds?
No.
Oh.
But please,
Why not?
continue.
Well, you are trying to buy the card that has the treasure hidden in it. Admittedly, the search is very, very simple. All you have to do is scratch.
That's luck more than anything, though. That's like me digging 5,000 holes in a field, hoping that I find some treasure.
That's basically the plot of Holes, though, and they did find treasure.
Really?
Well, there you go. Consider me wrong.
Yeah, that's how they found that Richard III skeleton as well in a car
When they're
park.
making a car park, yeah.
Yeah, they just happened to dig stuff up.
I thought you were actually talking about the lottery rather than like as in just the national lottery that you buy a ticket for and you're hunting for the winning numbers. But I think a scratch cards system is actually kind of like a treasure hunt in the same way. It's like, do you remember when Walkers used to do that? You could win a £5 in a packet of crisps.
It's a treasure hunt, but it's not something you can make a treasure map for.
Oh, okay.
Unless the map was a roll of scratch cards and one of them had an X on. And then you had to look through a roll of scratch cards to find out it's a really bad map.
If you have an X-ray machine, then you could do that. You could look through all the cards to see which one's got an X.
No, the map has the X on.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You've got a map of this roll of scratch cards, and then you've got a roll of scratch cards.
Uh-huh.
Would the X-ray show an X anyway? That's not
No,
how X-rays work.
Okay, I'm going to rethink my point there a little bit. Maybe being like if you have insider knowledge of which ticket on the roll of scratch cards has the winning numbers.
Well, didn't some guy in the States in the last few years scam quite a few of the lottery operators out there using the serial numbers for scratch cards?
Oh, really?
They knew kind of the probability of the amount of tickets of a certain value on certain rolls. They knew when they were printed and manufactured based on a serial number, and they deciphered a code and developed an algorithm to know exactly what scratch cards would be the winning scratch cards.
But how? Because surely you'd have to see all of the scratch cards first before you...
So I think they bought a large volume.
Okay.
Let's say they started with one roll.
Mm-hmm.
They can see the serial numbers of the cards on that roll. From there, they were able to deduce which ones were the winning ones, which ones were the higher value ones.
Did he just return the other ones that he didn't use or something? Or?
No, so I think there was obviously some investment, but once they cracked it, they could
I see.
always get the winning.
Yeah, you buy 10,000 scratch cards at $1 each. You've spent $10,000, but if the one you win gets you 50,000.
Yeah. Wasn't it? There's a guy who's won the lottery a couple of times or a maths teacher who's won the lottery a couple of times because he's figured out how to win, but he won't tell anyone.
I think that's a lie. I think he's just been very lucky because just sheer luck. There's no amount of probability that can deduce what lottery numbers are going to come out each week.
Like
Darren Brown tried. Did he?
Yeah,
he succeeded, didn't he?
Yeah. I don't know if he succeeded.
He's a wizard, though.
He is a wizard.
So do you think we've got an answer to your question?
I think so. I guess it was more kind of like I was interested to hear how we'd do it nowadays, and I think it's just that I think if you were to do it, you'd have to be quite creative, or you'd enjoy the kind of. Not necessarily, you might not enjoy it, but yeah, you'd have to get creative with the way that you're kind of creating it. What? Does that make sense? I'll start again. Yeah, I think you did. It was nice to hear kind of all the different ways that we were... Oh, fuck's sake. Sorry, my mind's gone. Yes, I think you did.
Cool, yeah, that's good.
I think we did too.
Yeah, I like the idea of a modern-day treasure map. I think that's something that more people should have in their lives.
I think it would be fun rather than we're just looking for riches here. We're not living the buccaneer lifestyle anymore. It's just something to kill a weekend on.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have no reason to go and get a plane to Paris right now, even though I probably have the means to. But if I was told, let's go and do this treasure hunt and it'll take us to Paris, then I'd probably have more of a reason to do that, and I think I'd enjoy that.
And it's kind of, it drives you to do things spur of the moment as well. Like it's this, who knows what the treasure is at the end? Maybe it is the treasures we find on the way.
I hope not, though. That would be such a letdown.
I had something else to say.
What do you want to say?
I think it was about Indiana Jones.
What about Indiana
I haven't
Jones?
fully formulated the thought. It's about his staff.
Staff.
Which film was that in?
Staff as in team or staff as in stick?
His stick.
Oh,
It's,
Last Crusade.
No, is it Last Crusade or
When
Raiders of the Lost Ark?
He has the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, they're kind of following the treasure map to find the Lost Ark.
Oh, and he holds the stick up in the light.
Yeah,
shows
to get
him
the light. So treasure maps should always have an element of the physical. If you can get an artifact that goes along with your treasure map.
I've been playing the Uncharted collection recently because I've never played Uncharted, and it's a game where it's basically one big treasure hunt.
So modern day Indiana Jones, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's just like a male Lara Croft.
Who's a modern day Indiana Jones?
That's true.
I love Indiana Jones.
Same.
Never watched it.
What?
Oh man, Ed gets my seal of approval. 100%.
He gets my seal of approval too.
Okay, I trust
I even
that.
like the fourth one, which is apparently a controversial.
I did actually
opinion.
see that one. I saw the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
You need to see the other ones.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Is that why you didn't go back to watch the others? If you watch the others and then watch Crystal Skull,
He's a good film.
You know what? Shia LaBeouf gets a lot of hate, but I
I
actually
love
think
him.
he's all right.
Yeah. There's that bit, it got a 12A rating because he's playing with a knife in one scene. And it's like, oh, well, he's like a role model, and that's going to inspire kids to play with knives.
as we learnt in last week's episode, knives are deadly weapons, unlike trumpets,
They can be
but they're not designed to
if you
be.
play them badly.
So if he was playing with a trumpet, it would have been a PG still, and not a 12A.
You can't look cool and play with a trumpet.
That's a lie, I think you will
Scar
find.
bands.
Other
All scar
people-
bands. Every single scar band.
Scar is in you have a scar on your face.
No, scar is in check trousers and trumpets.
Oh, like Suggs.
Ska.
Like Suggs, yeah.
Ska.
Ska.
Scar.
Would you
Ska.
opt in for trumpets for hands or trumpet for hand? Like one of your hands gets replaced with a trumpet that you can
Could
play?
I make sounds with it, or would I have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
blow
yeah.
it?
Like it's a whole functioning trumpet, and like your fingers are moving up and down of the little bits at the top that make different
I'd
sounds.
settle for a life as a circus freak.
If I was in a scar band, I would be very convenient.
Yeah,
Outside of that, I would see no practical use for
but
that.
you'd learn the trumpet and then just become a street performer and make millions.
You know how people talk in their sleep?
Just play the trumpet in your sleep.
Are
Go
you
and stand on a hill and just let the wind play you.
Are you still having to blow into one end of this trumpet,
Yeah.
or does it just kind of
You have
trump
to. You
itself?
have to do one end.
It seems like a waste of a hand.
But I think you can also turn it upside down, and then you've got like this big
Like a big
pint.
vase.
Yeah. Like so you kind of got a portable cup as well. If you found a treasure map now, like if we just walked out and we found a treasure map on the street and it looked legit, would you pursue it?
I think so. Like, I've read enough Famous Five books as a kid
Mm-hmm.
that if luck like that falls into your lap, you follow it. That's a good way to spend your summer holiday.
Yeah.
Not that I get summer holidays. I would book holiday.
Where would your limit be without any promise of reward or anything like that? If it's saying like, go to Paris, find this spot, there's your next clue.
I would get a rowing boat to a small island.
I would.
That's not Paris.
Paris is too easy.
No, but
So
But
Paris
the-
is before that in
the
my
map.
mind.
The map is telling. Oh, is that how far you'd go? It's
I-
not like
I-
it's telling you to go to Paris, so you'd go.
No,
to
it's
a
how
small
far
island.
physically I would go,
Okay.
not geographically.
Okay.
I don't think geographically I have a limit. I think, like, I wouldn't go into any confined spaces where I couldn't get out. I
Oh,
wouldn't.
would you go for Would you go for spelunking? Would you spelunk? I don't know what sentence I'm trying to say. Let's try again. Would you spelunk for treasure?
Yes, I would, provided I had somebody going with me. Because I'd be afraid of getting what's that film where he locks people up and plays tricks on them? Saw? Is that
Yeah.
that film?
Yeah.
You know,
Get sword.
somebody could have
Scene.
could like it could be a trap.
Yeah.
You know, they could have laid out this map for you
that's
to
mean.
follow.
I was thinking like I once found it was at some I think it was like at a coffee shop or something like that. I found a key with a USB stick stuck on it, and I gave it to the Lost and Found because like I'd just seen Mr. Robot, and I was concerned that like if I put this in a computer that it would just give me some kind of virus or something like that. But I was thinking like that would be a great way to start the treasure hunt. Like, as in you leave a key with a USB stick on it. That USB stick has a map to somewhere that you need to go, and it says it's for this address. Then you unlock it, and
Some geocaches are kind of USB ports in walls.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
connect your computer into them. And I wouldn't trust it
No.
at all.
That's going to steal all your bank details. It's going to put viruses on your computer.
But it's great. That is like the anti-treasure map. So you've worked really hard to find this thing, and then someone else gets all the rewards.
What, your bank details? Yeah, little did you know you had the treasure all along.
Yeah.
And they
we're
steal
back
it from
here.
It's
you.
not the treasure you found on the way, it's the treasure you started with.
Treasure that somebody stole from you.
And then you can have a lifelong quest to find out who did that to you.
Don't steal my penguin.
So I think we're about ready for another question.
Are we?
He says to a silent room.
We are silent in agreement.
So ready for this that you couldn't even bring yourself to words. My question is, what is the future of mapping? Where do maps go from here? Not literally, but in the future, what will maps be like? Not what is the destination of the map going to be.
I'm going to...
3D.
Yeah, Oculus Rift.
Ooh.
You know?
A map you can get inside. Rather than go to an actual place, you can be inside a map of a place.
Oculus Rift, you probably know, but maybe others don't, is like 3D goggles, but like a computer screen on your face.
It's virtual reality.
It's what
Virtual reality.
should be.
So badly describing it.
And this is like real virtual reality. Yeah. It's not like the old days where you'd be watching Games Master and there'd be a man in a weird blue ring with a massive headset on looking at something that's made of about 3 polygons. This is real life almost.
Yeah, commercially available, actually like get inside the game kind of thing.
Project Morpheus is Sony's equivalent as well. Oculus Rift was kind of like a Kickstarter sort of thing that was one of the first ones on the market that got a lot of publicity, and I think they've been bought by Facebook.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, but I still believe their hardware is like...
Can't imagine 3D Facebook would be any better than...
So you can go inside all of those embarrassing photos of people's parties. You can go and taste their dinners.
Imagine if they make Facebook like a game, like as in you go inside Facebook and it's like you have like chat rooms that are like you'll have your Facebook, which is like your house, and then it's like people can come and visit you and stuff like that.
Well, it'd be like Second Life, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and then you have
Facebook.
Oh
Like
God,
almost too real.
do you reckon that's what they're going to do in the future?
It's First Life. It's a natural progression of Second Life. It's not escapism anymore.
When Futurama told you what the internet looked like in the year 3000, that was exactly what it was. They all put the goggles on and wandered in, and the chat rooms were physical rooms.
Yeah.
But also it was full of adverts trying to attack them, just like, trying to smash straight into their faces.
I think that's potentially where 3D mapping and things will go, though. Instead of having billboards that everyone can see, you'll be using some kind of augmented reality map, and it'll be an advert on a billboard that whatever device you're using for this augmented map will show an advert specifically tailored to you.
That's the one thing that's actually not in Google's Maps product at the moment, because their entire search engine business is advertising supported. That's how they make their revenue. And so for that not to be present in Maps is quite, unusual.
I think it's just because they see it and understand it as a utility service more than anything else, and it's like I think it's quite an additional, if you know what I mean.
It's not open source, is it, though, from what I'm aware of?
No, they license it, I believe, from other people.
But there are other similar projects
Yeah.
doing things like Street View that are open source that users can edit and create and do whatever they want.
What about self-flying drones or self-driving cars when they arrive?
Well, yeah, I mean that's what didn't Google do a lot of their like Street View stuff with self-driving cars. Like I think they've had self-driving cars out on the streets and stuff like that, being monitored while they're like out there. But I know it's not like legal in terms of for public use, but I'm fairly sure they were doing that, and
They're all of those services are going to like rely on maps. I reckon the future of mapping will be much more live than it currently is. You look at current maps and they're fairly up to date, but if a new road has been built within the last 6 months or something, it's not going to be on your map.
Yeah, it's not going to be in your AA ring-bound map that's tatty and falling apart.
Even some Google Maps are out of date.
Have you used the Google Maps while you're driving, either of you?
Yeah, kind of the GPS functions of it.
It's amazing how the other people who are using Google Maps while they're driving will feed back to the application itself and their servers, so it'll like the map or the road will turn red when it's coming up to like a high or slow moving traffic, so it gives you live feedback immediately.
That's definitely where it's going. Eventually when these cars all have trackers in and are able to be pinpointed to the exact whereabouts they are on the road.
Have you ever seen the solar powered roads, or the solar panel roads?
I think I saw a Kickstarter for that.
There was it's I think in a town in America. There was basically this guy who came up with this concept of modular roads. There's like a hexagon, and they've got LEDs and solar panels in them. So they're programmable, and you can kind of say like diverting the traffic and stuff like that, and you can make it feed back to like the information systems in the local area, saying like there's been an accident here and stuff like that. But it's super cool. Like I think like as physical technology progresses, the maps and things like that we use will also progress with them, and I think it will kind of go together. Like
as a city driver, do you know what used to annoy me is traffic lights. So traffic lights in most cities are on a timer. Some of the more advanced ones have got maybe infrared cameras that sense when a car is near, but even those would sometimes fall down when they couldn't estimate how many cars were in the queue for a particular set of lights. And maybe the future of mapping is that they will take into account the road system as well, and they'll try and relieve congestion or divert traffic.
So do you think it's information rather than data is going to be the future of mapping?
Like, I reckon information coming into the map more quickly, rather than, because at the moment maps work the other way around. The data comes out from the map.
Yeah, so as a maps are kind of very binary in that they show
what it
directions.
is.
Yeah, they're 2D. Static, that's it. Whereas the future will be information where you can monitor traffic. It updates in real time.
In a way, yeah, but I also think there are other areas that maps fall down. For example, indoor mapping is probably a huge area of exploration.
I can't remember which airport it was. I went through one recently that did have a Google map of the inside.
Some shopping malls do.
Terminal to terminal was really, really easy.
What is it that I can't? I've seen it being made where it's like you'll stand there and then you'll start kind of just like looking around and it makes this like 3D environment. But what's the point of it? Is it so like if we start having more augmented reality where we're walking around and looking at something through a screen that it can show us relevant adverts?
I think maybe the adverts are a nice icing on the cake, but I think initially it's just the same reason as a normal map to help us find our way around.
Cool.
I think there are other areas that are being explored with actual maps as well. Mapping the surface of the moon, which I think is a Google project.
Did you know Google Moon, originally you could zoom in really far and it turned into a stock picture of cheese? If you got to the highest zooming, yeah.
Well, we all know that's what the moon is made of. And also the ocean floor.
Oh, wow.
That's not
cool.
been imaged by any degree to a large extent.
It's amazing how much of our own world we still can't accurately track. I mean, with Google Earth and its satellite imagery and all that sort of mapping, they're finding parts of forests and things that were hitherto unknown other than to the locals, the people who live in these little tribal
They found
communities.
a few like old temples and stuff like that, haven't they? Because previously old like buildings that were covered by dense forest, but now that we've got like cameras and stuff like that in satellites that are powerful enough that can scan underneath this, they can see the rock formations of like old civilization and stuff.
I think that's another area of growth for maps is like as you get more time that these digital maps have been around, maybe you'll be able to slide through time to see what your city looked like
historical mapping
100 years ago.
Yeah.
To see the buildings rise and fall, the effects of the Blitz, for example, or the equivalent, or even tectonic movements. How would that affect the
and 3D mapping, I guess, ties into that too. So if 100 years from now, if some disaster befalls a city, or if we just want to see the development, if we have a 3D map of a city, we can see exactly how the buildings have changed, not just their locations, but how they physically look and fit into that city. One of our colleagues at work was telling me today about a friend of his who's kind of an architect or a landscape designer or something like that, who won a competition for designing something in New York, despite never having been to the city, because he was able to use Street View 3D mapping to get a feel for the place, even though he'd never actually visited, and designed something that just fitted right into the community.
They do that on the news now. When a disaster or a situation happens in a certain town, rather than get one of their reporters out to the middle of nowhere, which isn't always practical within the time frame of a 24-hour news channel, they'll just use a stock image from Street View.
Yeah. And even like just people they're recording with their phones, put it online, and then with certain online places they'll maybe get contacted just saying like, can we use your footage on a newscast? I think as technology and like, you know, high performing technology is just at a consumer level now, we'll see that being used as a kind of open source stuff, like with 3D mapping, and it's like how you can kind of opt into. Have you used the Google Street View app?
I didn't know there was an app for it, to be honest.
You can take 3D. Did you ever use photosynth? It was like a photo. It was like a.
Yes,
you basically, with your
stitched.
phone, you take a photo that makes a 3D environment around where you're standing. And like, so you can take some really cool pictures. You can load up it on your phone, and you can just kind of scan around it and stuff like that.
Wouldn't there be an app where lots of people would go to tourist hotspots and upload all their photosynths, and so you could see what different, like the Cathedral of Notre Dame would look like from different
That's
points.
the purpose of the app. It lets you make it public or keep it private, and if you make it public, you can then, I think, collects all of this data, and then Google will stitch it all together in their own way to create like a, say if I like did it in front of the church, someone else did it, or the cathedral, sorry. So I did it in front of the cathedral, someone did it at the side, the two sides, and then someone else did it at the back. That creates a real 3D environment for the whole thing.
Tell you what I'd like relevant information on a map for me. So at the moment, maps are almost to the point where local businesses are completely listed on them, you know, and you can find your hairdresser or your sandwich shop, whatever you're looking for. But what about taking that one step further? What about making it so that you can find the Wi-Fi hotspot that you're looking for?
So this is what I mean when I was talking about information rather than just raw data on a map. So when was the last time you looked at a map to plan a journey instead of just saying, I want to go here, and have the map tell you where to go?
No, the map pretty much always tells me.
Yeah, so you don't have to sit and plan out your journeys anymore. So that's the start of maps moving towards information.
That's
so
cool.
now if the map can tell you exactly what you're looking for without you having to even think about it, and take you there without you having to know where you're going even.
So in that sort of way, it's like, I want to go from here to here, but on the way I want to get coffee. So it makes the map
The
go
map will
past
say, you're going to go here, you take a wrong turn. Most GPS systems now will be able to calculate on the fly.
Yeah.
Well, now you've done this, you need to do this, rather than say, no, backtrack, you've gone off.
For certain industries, that must be helpful as well. You know, say you're the guy that services the phone cable on a road. You know, it'll tell you where all the boxes are that you need to go to access the phone cable.
A lot of companies do have their own kind of private maps, but then making all of that public.
Yeah.
Not that we necessarily need to know where every single phone exchange is, but having a open source kind of crowd-sourced map that people contribute to in that way, it's the only way to really build that level of information.
Do you ever go to a city you've never been to before? Let's say you've just moved there and you realise you have no understanding of the layout, and then 6 months down the road realise that this map has formed in your brain of the paths and
when
layout.
I first came to Edinburgh, based on the hotel that I was staying in, that was like my entry point of the city. That was like the start of the map for me, and then everything else kind of formed around that sort of area. And then when I eventually moved up here, that changed, because that was like the way that I constructed it was wrong on how the city is actually planned out. And then I kind of started to look at it from just like my kind of perspective shifted, and it's kind of interesting how that happens. Like I'm from just outside of Brighton, so my entry point for Brighton, where it kind of started for me, was the Brighton train station, because that's the first place that I would always come into. So the rest of the city was, in my head, kind of based around that, whereas like friends who grew up, you know, a mile away from the train station on the other side of town had their kind of view starting from that point. So
It's just kind of based in local knowledge and your own personal experience rather than any sort of real map data. Like there's certain cities I've probably never seen a map for, but you put me on the ground and I can get you around it, no problem. I can give you directions from one place to another.
There's a game like that. It's where you get dropped in a random place on Google Street View, and you have to find an airport to get yourself home.
Nice.
Almost like you are waking up.
You've just
That's
got to
really
kind
cool.
of
I like that.
intuitively use what you know about how cities generally work to find your way out of it.
Yeah, and you maybe read the signs to find out where you are, or
unless they've been blurred out because
Google
don't want to
Google
advertise
does that.
the place you're really in or some weird
And I
stuff.
suppose you're at a slight disadvantage to the real version because you can't just tap a stranger on the shoulder and ask
Say,
them
where's
for
the airport?
Yeah. You've got to find it.
But eventually, the people that show up in these photos in Google Street View will be able to find out exactly who they are and email them to say, "Oh, I'm playing this game. I happen to see you on this street at this point in time."
Their faces are blurred
That's a
out.
complete breach of privacy.
Yeah.
But in the future, when everything is open source, you'll be able to see who is where.
I'm
government
I'm
can already
opting out
do it.
of that.
Have either of you read The Circle by Dave Eggers?
No.
No.
It's kind of like a slightly frightening satire on the big Silicon Valley tech startups. And one of the key ideas in that is they've developed this tiny little camera that's cheap, self-powered, connects to the internet magically itself somehow. And they've started just distributing them around the world so you can get almost real-time footage of anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And that kind of ties into their own version of Google Maps Street View,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, but it's in real time.
Mm.
So it'd be the equivalent of kind of hacking into street cameras,
Yeah.
There was,
road traffic cameras.
There was a road traffic camera recently that got really, really popular
Oh yeah, in Newcastle.
because people were walking into a puddle that was right in the middle of the camera's shot. So you would basically, the premise of going to the website to watch the camera was watch people fall into a puddle.
Wow.
So do you think we've answered your question about the future of maps?
I think so. I think we've touched on the near future, like in like 1,000 years' time. What sort of crazy maps? Are we going to be just living in a map? Do we need to go outside anymore in
like
1,000
Star
years
Wars,
from now?
weren't they? Where they project them,
Oh, the
like,
big hollow
blue
maps.
maps.
Yeah. I hope that
So
is the future of just technology. We lose colour and everything is 3D, but it's just blue.
Yeah.
so cool. Like a projection.
It's the best we can do. All the old TVs have died out.
Yeah. No, flat screens seem like the future. Everything's a flat screen these
Or glass
days.
screens.
Well,
they have those in Star Wars
They've
as
made
well.
Yeah, that's
they've
true.
made those bendy TVs now, or they've made a bendy screen, like as in they've done it, guys.
Maybe that's the future of maps. Like an old paper map that is actually a screen that you can still
Yeah.
fold up, but
Like
it updates in real
like
time.
a Kindle for maps. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
That would actually be very good. And then you can annotate it as you're going. If you find something new that needs to be added to the map, make a note on the map itself, and then it's there. It's on
Right,
everyone else's
that's
maps.
our idea. Like we're trademarking that.
Yeah, no
that's,
copying
It's
that.
the Trufax map.
We're going to make that. Let's kickstart that. Kickstarter.com/Trufax podcast map.
Map. The first thing on the map will be Trufax Towers.
Cool.
Wow.
Well, good.
I think, should we end this episode properly and say goodbye? I don't think we've done that before.
Never had a proper sign-off.
Let's start now.
Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
I've got really bad dandruff.